Good evening, I'm Fahana Sheikh and you're tuning in to AWANI Tonight. We review what to expect in Johor for the next 2 weeks ahead of campaign. And negotiations between Russian and Ukraine officials underway in Belarus as world steps up measures to sanction and isolate Russia. More on that coming up. Although Malaysia's daily COVID-19 infectivity rate is steadily dropping, we are not out of the woods yet. Health Minister Kari Jamaluddin says it is too early to determine if Malaysia has gone past the peak of the Omicron wave. In a tweet, he shared that 96% of active cases are recovering at home and hospital capacity is currently under control. If the trend continues, full border opening and more relaxed domestic measures will follow suit. Malaysia's COVID-19 infectivity rate, or R0, was at 1.06 yesterday, a 0.02 decrease from the 1.08 R0 reported the day before. Meanwhile, Health Director General Dr. Nur Hisham Abdullah said only a total of 105 cases, or 0.43% of COVID-19 infections recorded yesterday, were in categories 3, 4 and 5. However, he said that 6 states and federal territories have recorded ICU bed usage of 50% or more. They are Kelantan, Johor, Putrajaya, Kuala Lumpur, Perak and Malacca. There are no straight fights in the upcoming Johor state election as a total of 239 candidates vie for 56 seats. Which party would stand to gain the most in multi-cornered fights? Here to dissect the likely scenarios is political analyst, Associate Professor Dr. Hamidin Abdul Hamid.
The multiple corner fight that becoming a usual thing, a normal thing in PR and Johor. This round, you can see that even up to 7 corner fight, and most of the seat will be contested at least 4 corner fight. Around 30-something of seat will be contested by 4 corner fight. So with that, I think what something that we have to look is how the small party basically will carry out their campaign and how they can make an impact on Malaysians' politics, especially in Johor, and to what extent the result of the election will affect any party in the future, especially when they're faced with the general election.
Coalition parties, he said, is shaping up to be a norm in Malaysian politics and is expected in the upcoming general elections as well.
I think obviously for Johor, it is very much reflective that coalition party is the norm in Malaysian politics. So you can see, I think, in most of the seats is contested between 3 coalitions, between PH versus PN and versus DN. So with that, you can see that there is at least 9 parties within that 3 coalitions. So with that, I think how and to what extent other fringe party, small party will accommodate and will join which coalition. I think something that we have to look forward for general election in the coming month. Because I do believe that for the smallest party, the only way for them to survive and for them to make an impact in Malaysian politics, for them to be part of the coalition or bigger coalition among other parties. Yeah.
Hamidin said the battleground will be mostly centred on Malay-focused seats.
We can divide Johor seat into 3 categories: rural, semi-urban and urban. So I think normally Barisan Nasional will be kind of a forte for them in the rural seat, and for PH they will be they are very strong in the urban and semi-urban. So with that, I think something that we have to look is to what extent the impact of Perikatan Nasional, especially among the Malay voters, because from what we get from Malacca, they get a big chunk of votes, around 24% of popular vote in Malacca. So can they repeat themselves in Johor? I think that's some of the areas that we are looking add in the next election in Johor.
Moving on from Johor to a bill that will affect our whole political culture, the Anti-Hopping Bill. Hamidin believes that the outcome of the Johor election will affect the passing of this bill.
It's going to be some contestation where it depends on the dynamic of the political party. I think what happened in Johor state election, I think, will do effect how the bill will be proceed in the parliament. So with that, I think even though we can see there is a bigger majority of members of parliament want anti-hopping bill to be passed, but I don't think they can get easily to the 2/3. So a lot more work has to be done by opposition and also by government party side to make sure that they can get the 2/3 support of the members of parliament to make sure the anti-hopping bill be passed smoothly.
Hamidin said the bill will allow for a mature political system to grow for the future.
It's going to change the political culture in Malaysia. I think that's one of the things that is very important for us to create a platform, a framework where we can have a very mature political system, and that anti-hopping will definitely contribute for that. That's one. Second thing, I think what for any political party, they really want to have some stability in the dynamic of each political party. So with anti-hopping, I think it's very much give a kind of assurance to any political party that they're going to survive if they have any advantage after any general election.
At the same time, the government must urgently review the Anti-Sexual Harassment Bill 2021. The Joint Action Group for Gender Equality said this was due to significant gaps in the bill, especially on protection for victims of sexual harassment. The group, involving 17 NGOs, urged the Parliamentary Special Select Committee on Women and Children Affairs to include organisational duties to prevent and address sexual harassment in the bill. This is to ensure organisations such as workplaces, schools or universities take preventive measures against sexual harassment, such as mandating basic awareness on sexual harassment and introducing proper complaining systems. It added that existing provisions under the Employment Act are limited, with no laws covering universities, schools or public places where harassments could occur. Additionally, the bill must also include a clause to protect victims from negative consequences of making a complaint. The group also urged to extend the definition of sexual harassment. This is so instances where the harassment is not directed at a particular individual, but inadvertently creates an offensive, hostile or intimidating environment can be recognized as a form of harassment. The first reading of the bill was tabled on 15 December 2021. And the second reading was made earlier today. We continue our discussion on Johor election on Consider This tonight. With more than half of the seats seeing four-way fights, we asked our guests how political stakeholders are preparing for polling day. We'll go for a quick break. Stay with us.
Kulit kering dan sensitif bila cuaca panas? Kulit anda perlu jagaan lembut untuk sentiasa segar dan terhidrat. Govt Go Fresh baharu dengan prebiotik yang menyegarkan kulit, menguatkan lapisan kulit tanpa sulfat dan paraben. Kulit segar dan terhidrat. Govt Go Fresh baharu.
Selamat datang ke yang mana satu idaman you. Jika anda ada RM109, mana satu yang anda mahu? 90 saluran Astro atau internet laju? Persoalannya, kenapa you kena pilih kalau semuanya ada dengan bundle jimat, internet laju dan 90 saluran Astro hanya RM109 sebulan sahaja? Kan? Call 03-7481-3000 sebelum promosi habis.
Welcome back. Russia's attack on Ukraine has entered its fifth day. Negotiators for Kiev and Moscow have arrived at the Ukraine-Belarus border and started peace talks. Ahead of the meeting, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said his country wanted an immediate ceasefire and the withdrawal of Russian troops, but expressed little optimism that the negotiations would result in an end to the attack. He also urged Russian troops to lay down their weapons and called for immediate EU membership. Ukraine claimed that over 5,000 Russian troops had lost their lives during the Kremlin's assault, adding that the pace of the Russian offensive has slowed, but assaults are ongoing in multiple cities. Russian forces are on the move in the country from the south and north, with the main target to seize Kiev and the capital city. Meanwhile, the Ukraine Interior Ministry said that over 350 civilians have been killed since the invasion began, including 14 children, while thousands have fled the country. As the world moved to isolate and sanction Russia, Moscow showed little interest in de-escalating. On Sunday, President Vladimir Putin told his military commanders to put Russia's nuclear forces on high alert. Slowed by Ukrainian resistance and their own logistical shortcomings, Russian forces have already begun adopting harsher methods such as rocket attacks in cities. Those tactics could produce many more civilian casualties. Although the West has been wary of any direct military engagement with Russia, which could spiral into war, the EU is taking the unprecedented step of sending arms to Ukraine, closing airspace to Russian aircraft and banning Russian state media outlets. Meanwhile, the Russian currency plunged to an all-time low as more countries cut off Russia's banks from their financial markets. Russia's central bank doubled its key interest rate after the ruble slumped by as much as 30% against the US dollar today. Bank of Russia said it raised the rate to 20% from 9.5% as it scrambled to manage the fallout of a slew of sanctions. The central bank also has appealed for calm amid fears that there could be a run on the banks. Residents are bracing for economic hardship as Russia gets increasingly isolated from the world. Over the weekend, the EU, US and their allies have agreed to cut off a number of Russian banks from the main international payment system, SWIFT. Over in Australia, 8 people have died and several still missing as major floods submerged towns in the country's east coast. Parts of the country's third most populous city, Brisbane, went underwater after heavy rain brought record flooding over the weekend. Authorities warned about 15,000 homes would be impacted by rising waters as the Brisbane River neared its peak Monday morning. Prime Minister Scott Morrison described the rains as a weather bomb that was now moving slowly south to New South Wales. Evacuation orders have been issued to several towns in the most populous state, including in Lismore. The flooding in Brisbane and its surrounding is the worst since 2011, when the city of 2.6 million was hit by what was described as a once-in-a-century event. Hong Kong officials are considering to impose a hard lockdown as COVID-19 cases surged to over 34,000 today. The death toll is also rising, with facilities running out of storage for dead bodies. Authorities revealed another 124 deaths due to COVID, 87 of them in the past 24 hours. Hong Kong leader Carrie Lam previously ruled out a citywide lockdown and instead has ordered all 7.4 million residents to be tested in March. But in a U-turn, Health Secretary Sophia Chan confirmed on Monday that it was still an option. That is all we have for you on AWANI tonight. Get the latest news update on COVID-19 and COVID-19 vaccines from astroawani.com and the Astro AWANI app. I'm Farnashe. We'll see you again.